a professor of the Department of Communications and Computer Science at the University of California at Davis. The title is Keep Calm and Keep Web Scrapping, Lessons Learned from the Use of Big Data to Inform Public Policies. Please.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias por tenerme aquí, por los organizadores. Un gran evento. Aprendí muchas cosas ayer. Como vengo de California, voy a tratar de hablar.
I come from California, I will try to speak Spanglish and exchanging from one language to the other now and again. The quality or the quantity of information has grown a lot. In the academic world, I was one of the first to be involved in this, and we did it with Priscilla. She was working with me at ECLAC, and to sum up, in the 80s, less than 1% of all technological information around the world was digital, but today, more than 99 point something percent of the information worldwide is digital. So, over the last 20 to 30 years, we have digitalized all the information that we have around the world, which includes a little chip at the back of your credit card, all the stores in the street, Google servers, and so on. The last time that I updated the estimate in 2014, the world was able to store 5 zettabytes. Not that large a number, but now if you take those 5 zettabytes and put them into books and make a pile, how far do you think the pile will go? The moon? More the sun? Well, if you travel at 130 kilometers an hour, you will have to travel 130 years to reach the sun. You are going to spend many books traveling at 130 kilometers per hour. But who says that the information that we have on humanity goes as far as the sun? 2 or 3? Well, the last time, 4,500 piles of printed books, 4 times the trip to the sun. So, most of the information is about us, and we leave it behind with the digital footprint. And the economy also uses this. We've heard a lot talking about the GDP. If we leave the official statistics behind and we see what's the value, in the recent years, it's clear people still think that the banks do everything. Wars are on account of human resources and so on, but it's no longer the case. The 5 companies by far that manage the world do no more than study social patterns and turn them into an economic value. That's what they do. They study our behavior, and that is what has an economic value today. And what's most interesting that in the recent years is that 2 have changed place. Now, does this reflect the GDP or not? Well, who cares? Perhaps it's a political power that they have, or cultural power, but value, they manage the world. This is even more valuable than oil. And now you can guess what we will start coming wars about. It will not be about oil. And so, mostly it's these digital footprints that matter. I don't like the word big data. Replace that by digital footprint or fingerprint. If you have Gmail on your phone, Google Maps, Waze, and who has spent about 3 hours doing your privacy settings? Yes, 2 or 3 have done it. If not, go here and see where you were for each second of your life over the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, this is where I've been. And a lot of details. In December 13, there I went to lived here. And what was I doing at La Piojera on the Wednesday? Who remembers? But Google will remember forever. For practical terms, do not share this trick with your couple because they probably will not understand. Well, you can get a lot of information here, and so does Google. We can do an inverse engineering with a census, 85% precision, with a census. This is done every 10 years, right? But here, the last one in Chile, you did not do too well. ECLA corrected the data, and they needed to repeat it after 5 years again, almost real time. What an expense every 5 years updating this. This is a true scandal, but you could do it, update it every day and get to 85% of what the census could give. And it's free of charge, and people leave their digital fingerprint behind. So, how to use that for public policy? Now, in Latin America, these platforms that operate in many countries, for example, if I would like to study the labor market, there you have these pages that operate in several countries, and they use the same infrastructure, the same data structure that I could use to access your API and so create internationally comparable statistics on the labor market, for example. Or here, if you would like to be an entrepreneur, you have a crowdsourcing web page, crowdfunding, and businessmen go there to look for money and see how innovation is doing in Latin America. This operates in 17 countries. Mercado Libre, 18 countries. You can see what's happening in the region or price indexes in general. And of course, these giants as well. Yesterday, we discussed between IMF and Eurostat as to how we should collaborate with these companies and how we could access to this information. And often you say, well, let's go there and ask Mark Zuckerberg if he will share his data. And what do you think Mark will answer? How many people do you think knock on his door every day to ask him this? But the truth is, you don't need to go to the big door. Often the data is already provided. A lot of these providers have APIs, application interfaces, where they give you the data and you can apply for it and then access to their data and process them. They share their data for app developers. If you want to have an app on your phone, you would like to use Google Maps or through Twitter, you can integrate it to your database. You don't need to wear the developer's hat, but you can access the data. And they have a lot of data. Now, the interesting thing is that once you did it, and you knocked on their door, and you show them what you've withdrawn, then you start to negotiate. So first of all, do your work at home. And this is a lot of work. We've also done this in recent years, 3 to 4 years with ECLAC. And there are some representatives here, like Valeria here, who's worked with us on that. And so far, the small door. And what can we do with the small door? Let's talk a little bit about these exercises that we've done in the last 3 to 4 years and what we've learned. The idea is always the same. You go to a portal and everything that you can see there, you could collect it. You can collect it. You have a right to do copy-paste to Excel. You can also automate it and that will go much quicker. But the idea is always the same. You go to the web page and what you can see there, you copy-paste and then you create a database and then you create a traffic showing, in this case, the skills of workers in Latin America. But I think this is here is Central America. But well, you could also create these dashboards or the price of technology. What is the value of a mobile phone in different countries of Latin America? You go here, you can see a price index for all the way from drones to tablets, laptops, and others. And you can create the price index in real time. So here it shows you. And these websites have their apps. They have databases and APIs that you can access and get the data. They offer to it. You don't even need to knock on the door for that and get it. So that is the idea. Now, in theory, you always say, right, if only I had these computer skills, I could go to the internet and reality will reveal before me clear as water. But as I say, we are struggling with it. I teach about this at the university, the most comprehensive university in the world, and I'm still learning day by day as I do it. But the truth is that most of the challenges that we encounter are the old statistical issues that we've always had. And so, yes, it is useful if you know Python, and it's useful if you know R, but Python is more useful. I think you know that, yes. But that is that is not a what's most needed are the same statistical issues that we've always had and that each one of you is working on every day. It has to do with this sort of thing: definition of indicators, source selection, harmonization, data quality, and so on. This is what I would like to talk to you about in the remaining 15 minutes. I could go through them all, but I will go through as many as I can. Definition of indicators. The problem that we have here is that we have too much information. We have big data. And so if you go here, this is the web page I spoke about that has crowdfunding. And so here entrepreneurs go to look for money. And there is 1,551 odd thousand odd projects that investors have financed in Latin America in recent years. And you can see that if you analyze here, this for Chile, the project on average had most money health. $15,000 on average, and you compare to other sectors in Chile. Second is education. But in Brazil, for example, agriculture has most innovation, and then construction, quite similar between Chile and Brazil. It's very interesting if you would like to understand innovation, what they share in common, and what is distinct between the two. So you can compare Latin America with other regions of the world and separate now. These breakthroughs are led by men. And how are they doing with entrepreneurial projects led by women? How is the difference doing? And at the end, we see how many variables do I have? Well, 25 countries here, 14 different years, 5 gender settings, mixed led by women, mixed led by men, and 15 sectors. But so all in all, I have 59 variables here. Now, one issue that I still have with economists is that economists say to me as a data scientist, they say, send me the graph. Okay, how many graphs can I extract from this? This is a dashboard. How many graphs can I extract from 59 variables? You remember school? N over K? Well, 59 points. As I said at the start, this health come first. Then I can put 2 points, 1,700 graphs, 3 points, 32,000, 4, 500,000, and so I can go on and on. So ultimately, I could create 500 billion graphs just from that. These are 1 billion graphs per inhabitant in Latin America. So each baby to each grandparent, for each one of them, I could create 1 billion personalized graphs. And so the economist says to me, send me the graph. And I say, well, what graph would you like? And it's not easy, because the truth is that it is no longer the graph that I, as a data scientist, do. Is I give them a dashboard. And the entrepreneur in Nicaragua would be interested in a graph different to what the interest of the investor in La Conde. But this is my work. The idea is to show them the dashboard, and then the analyst chooses what they would like to see. And this is possible on account of all the graphs that we have. But already choosing the graph gives you a lot of power. So you can choose one graph per person. The central bank should have, as part of its communication strategy, per population group, see the graphs that they would like to see. And that is what the political campaigns do. So please look who do you want to contact, and that's what you put up in your portal. Now, and if the central bank isn't doing it, someone else will. Someone else will, even from other countries, because political campaigns have started. They do it in other countries if you don't do it yourself. That is how things are done today. And so what we do here, these are dashboards. I know that in the Central Bank of Chile, they work with a high chart, which is very good. There are several solutions, but that is the idea, to have these interactive dashboards to provide data, and the analysts can use that to design their story. Now, economists say to me, what is the cost of a drone in Latin America, and what is the cost? Interesting. Well, so I go to Falabella and I see what is the cost of a drone from China or a drone from the US? Very empty from the security infrastructure. Does it come from China? Well, some people have their worries, or does it come from the US or Europe? What is the cost of a drone coming from these different countries? So I go to Falabella and I see that a drone from China costs $1,500. But if I go to Mercado Libre, I see that the drone costs $800. So what's the cost of a drone? Well, it depends on where you look. So the digital footprint is never a representative random sample. It's never a sample. Here, this is not a sample. I just go to Mercado Libre and I collect the universe. The thousands of drones that are sold over Mercado Libre, I collect them. I have the entire universe from Mercado Libre. Is Mercado Libre Latin America? No. If you go to Falabella, you see something different. So if I change the source, I get different things. Here in Falabella, we find 38 drones. In Mercado Libre, 17,000. Why is that? Why? What's the reason for this? That this one here, these advertise less than these? Well, because here I have a website per drone type. The Falabella doesn't tell me how many drones they're selling, but here I have information per drone sold. And each drone has its own website, really. But these are different markets. It's very interesting. If we were to collect these, we will find a very interesting correlation, which is linear. So Falabella is exactly 2.3 times more expensive than Mercado Libre. And that in itself is interesting, that the primary retail market is 2.3 times more expensive than a peer-to-peer market, where a lot of the drones are new.
This explains a lot. But the message is the digital footprint is never represents it fully. Here we have two labor market websites, Freelancer and Workana. We see here the demand per skill. You see that the world wants a lot of programmers and IT professionals, not so much designers. And we all agree that IT is now the highest demand we see in the freelancer market. What about supply? Latin America, is it overrepresented or underrepresented? How does the supply and the demand of skills work? Well, if I go to Workana in Latin America, males are overrepresented, but in the freelancer world, they are underrepresented. So once again, the economists tell me, okay, are we good? Are we okay? Well, it will depend the way you look at it. In Workana, we are okay. In freelancer, which is the global figure, we're not doing so well. In Workana, of course, it is only Latin America, but the rest we're taking into account all the continents. Here's a tale from India where these blind men touch the elephant and they all try to figure out what it is. They say, well, it's a snake. Well, it's a tree trunk. And well, data scientists, when they look at data online, you never see the big picture. It's like the blind man touching different web pages and you find out different things. And that's how reality works. What is reality? Are we overrepresented, underrepresented? It will depend on the market and what you look at. So when you go online, you will see much information, but it's only a representative sample. You see things very clear with a lot of details, and that's what we need to get used to. harmonization. I won't talk much about that, but you can see that there are many challenges here. For example, skills. We have 20,000 different skills listed here. If you harmonize that with another website that has, I don't know, 13,000 skills, how do we harmonize these indicators eventually? That's a very important question. Data quality. Well, data quality is very important, and the lack of data quality for the digital footprint has two different origins. One is data providers. When we address a very important question, what about love? What about love in Latin America? How are people in their personal relationships? To do that, we go to Facebook. And once again, you don't have to knock on Zuckerberg's door. You can go to the Facebook data manager, and Facebook knows Latin America very well. That's how they carry out their business. So you put a ad on Facebook saying, I want this message to be seen by men between such X age range that like soccer, that knows IT, who are now on in a relationship. They say, well, okay, this is worth $2, and I will show this message to 5,000 people with that profile in Chile. So Facebook knows Chile better than any other institution. So when we go to Facebook and we go to the ads manager, we are doing somehow reverse engineering on Facebook. What we're really interested in is the number of potentials receivers of our message. And this is fully legal. You don't need to knock on Mark Zuckerberg's door. Here, we can see in Latin America the 33 countries listed with people under 40 years of age. Most of them are single. And here on a relationship, married people, and here currently in a relationship. When you go to the Caribbean countries, this is very interesting to see. In the Caribbean, it's quite uniform. There's so many people in an open relationship, as much people in an open relationship than married people. Well, it's the Caribbean. I don't know. Many open relationships. Do you really think that's the case? If we go to people over 40 years of age, you can see more countries in Latin America with a more uniform distribution. We didn't believe that. What we thought is that if the sample is less than 1,000 people, Facebook has a 1,000 people default. Now, if you go for a different age range, there are less. If there is less than 1,000 people there, they will look. Facebook will tell you, mark potential 1,000 people. So this is a failure in the way Facebook reports the information. I cannot use this data. It's not useful. I need to look. This is 84,000 people from in the IT sector. So can you see a way in which 84,000 people participate? Have you seen a survey like that? Well, Facebook has that, but it's not good data for statistical conclusions. Also, another origin of bad quality data, I've talked about the provider. Now I'm going to talk about the users. Here you see a job profile, Juan, who works in translation, and his motto is do things and do things well, and he's charging $5,000 an hour. Here, Juanito, he says there's no problems, only solutions. He knows HTML, he knows Flash, and he charges $18,000 an hour. And I'm asking myself, what am I doing teaching in California? So what happens here? Do you think that Juan charges $5,000 for translation and Juanito $18,000 for web design? What is going on here? They're lying. No, actually, they are talking about pesos. It's supposed to be pesos here. So here it's like it's $7 an hour actually. So this is much more believable. So since this is crowdsourced data, the data provider, which is the user in this case, simply made a mistake. So I need to clean that information up. And to do that and to reach more accurate figures regarding wages, we need to do a lot of cleaning. So this is another problem with data quality. When it's crowdsourced, there's many things you need to worry about. What is also important, it's not only computer skills, but substantive domain knowledge is also very important. You need to know what type of data you are gathering. Here, for example, we have Mercados Libres data, and we see the number of canceled transactions has a correlation, a strong correlation with the positive evaluations. So in Venezuela, many transactions are canceled and people love it. In Argentina as well. Here, on this side, people don't cancel transactions and also evaluations are not that good. So what is going on? Well, according to a data scientist, what does it mean when you want to, well, if you want to evaluate better your e-commerce sector, you need to cancel more transactions. This is the conclusion. This is a correlation and causation with the consumption of cheese, that you need to have more cheese to get your doctorate degrees. Of the deaths being hit by sports equipment, they are correlated with movies with Nicolas Cage. Yeah, we gotta tell this gentleman to stop making movies then. So you need to see the variables whenever you see these curious correlations. And here the confounding variables is the number of sellers. If you normalize that to the numbers of sellers, here you have a negative correlation that you will actually expect between the number of canceled transactions and positive evaluations per vendor. This has to do with the network externalities and everything you find in social networks. And the size of the labor market in the e-commerce market, it's very important to see how popular it is. But if you don't know anything about trade and online trade, you won't find this correlation. And you start to give political recommendations that are based on gibberish. So it's very easy to find kids that know Python and data analysis, but the knowledge of the domain, substantive domain knowledge, is what is important to interpret data, and that is much harder to teach to students because that is only achieved with many years working in the economy, and big data won't change that. Finally, automated classifier. Here we have a huge opportunity because we have many sources of information. Internet is full of text and image, and we can use text and image and convert that to figures and get statistics out of that. In job portals, they don't report gender. It wouldn't be legal, but they have names. So we can have the names and classify names with an automatic classifier, and you can see, for example, how we can figure out the gender. Of course, Chris is a bit ambiguous, but there are some of them that you cannot classify using the name. So we classify that using images. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So here, if you correlate both, this is an automated classifier by name and machine learning by image. Those that you cannot classify by name, you do it with the image. And finally, I only have 5% of people not classified, or they don't report the gender, but I can do it with an automated classifier. And the machine does that in a few seconds. And if you combine text and image, that's the result you'll get. You can also convert. Here we have some text in Mercado Libre. Once again, location. Santiago metropolitan region. You can relate that to Google Maps, geo-reference that, and have this beautiful graph and or map regarding SMEs in Latin America. The location of SMEs in Latin America is we're able to do that thanks to this text here combined with Google Maps. Of course, you can do things with semantic classification. Here you can see Twitter and the number of cyber crimes in Latin America and what people are talking about on Twitter. So this is the issues that we're struggling with in statistics: representation, representativity, data quality, and so forth, harmonization, and also we need a necessary requirement, which is you need to know Python. And the work that we did here, I didn't do that. It was the group of students, Valeria and everyone in the productive development unit in ECLAC, and everyone, they are the one that should take all the credit for this work. I'm here presenting, but they are the ones who did the hard work. So thank you very much for your attention.